Oh,
This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Nana the First. I am the founder of the Universal Order of Ishtar. For those of you who don't know, and the title of my presentation tonight is Offerings and Rites in the Devotion to Ishtar. So, what do we first need? What do we need to know about offerings? The first thing that we need to know is that offerings are an essential component in one's devotion to Ishtar. You cannot talk about your devotion to Ishtar, your personal devotion to Ishtar, without talking about offerings. They are proof of our undying love and loyalty to Ishtar. So if you say that you love Ishtar, you are loyal to Ishtar, and you are devoted to Ishtar, you cannot talk about that without talking about offerings. So the question is, what are the types of offerings that we must give or we can give to the goddess Ishtar? And we are going to get into that shortly. So the first one is bread. Now, bread was considered a sacred meal in ancient Mesopotamia. I think a lot of people know about that. I don't need to go into details. It was considered a sacred meal in ancient Mesopotamia. And if one wants to offer bread, both leavened and unleavened bread are welcome as offerings to the goddess Ishtar. And number two, we have beer. Beer was considered a secret drink in ancient Mesopotamia. And I think one of the mentions of beer was when Enki consumed beer when he granted the mist to Ishtar. I think I want to thank Amara for the correction. I was able to do more research and discover that actually Ishtar didn't steal the mess from Enki. Rather, Enki granted it. It was more of a dynamic power play. So, yeah, I want to thank Amara for the correction. Yes, it was consumed by Enki when he granted the maize to Ishtar. So beer is one of the things that can be given that can be offered to Ishtar as a sacrifice. Um, we have wine. Wine is an alternative to beer for those who can afford. It's also one of the liquid offerings that can be given to the goddess Ishtar. You know, wine is mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh when I think one of the priestesses of Ishtar tells Enkidu to consume wine so that his heart may be merry. So it's an alternative to beer for those who can afford, and they can also offer the wine as a sacrifice to Ishtar. And on the D part, we have fruits of the soil. It includes all the fruits. That means things such as figs, grapes, oranges, peaches, apples, grain, bananas, all that. You can offer these things as a sacrifice to Ishtar. And one of the recommendations I always give to people is not to offer to continue to be continuous in the offering of one particular type of fruits. They should diversify if possible. Whenever they want to offer sacrifices of the fruits of the soil to Ishtar, they have to diversify. One side they put figs, the one other side they put grapes, the other side they put oranges, and so on and so forth. And we have honey. Lastly, we have honey. Honey is it's a very good offering that one can give to Ishtar. It connects with our sexual side. Honey symbolizes sensuality, sexuality. And once you offer honey to Ishtar, you are connecting to our sexual side. Now, it depends on the type. Like I said, devotion to Ishtar, it depends on the side of Ishtar that you connect to. Given that even in ancient Mesopotamia, um, the courts of Ishtar varied. It was not one particular thing, you know. The people of Kish, they were more militant in their way of life. They were more nationalistic. So when they were talking about devotion to Ishtar, they were mostly connecting with her warlike side, whereas the people of Uruk and the people of Nippur mostly focused on her on her fertility and sensual side. So honey is mostly for those who can connect with her sexual side, those who want to connect with her sexual side. So that's for the first part of the presentation that focuses on her on the offerings that can be offered to Ishtar. So in conclusion, number one, you have to take into account that only the best should be offered to the goddess. Whenever you're talking about offerings to Ishtar, you should be talking about the best. You should consider the best. And number two, in all things, consider yourself and your reaction to what you are offering before giving it to Ishtar. Um, like like I said, only the best should be given to Ishtar, and you should consider yourself. That means you should do a self-examination of what you're about to offer to Ishtar and ask yourself if what you're about to give, whether you in particular will like it. If you know that you in particular, you won't like the offering if it was ever given to you, then there's no need for you to give it to Ishtar. So these are just for the offering part. These are just the few that I can suggest. I think a lot of people here, you have your different types of things that you can add. You can add to the offerings. There's a lot of things that some of you people have that you give to the goddess Ishtar. And I just, in all things, whatever you choose to give to the goddess Ishtar, you just need to ensure that it is the best and it is something that even you will accept under any formal condition. So I will go into the rites. So what do we need to know about the rites? Rites are at the core of our devotion to the goddess Ishtar. When we are talking about our personal connection to Ishtar, you cannot talk about personal connection to Ishtar without talking about rites. It is through rites that we are able to pray to the goddess Ishtar. It is through rites that we are able to offer our personal intentions and requests to the goddess Ishtar. And on the second point, without them, there's no way we are talking of devotion to Ishtar. So we cannot even talk about devotion to Ishtar without talking about rites. So the basic component to perform devotional rites to Ishtar. So the things that you need in order to perform your devotional rites to the goddess Ishtar, you need number one, an altar. I think for those who follow us on Facebook, we spoke about the basic components of an altar, the type of things that you need to have for your altar. And yeah, among the things we spoke about, a divine icon that is either a representation of the goddess or her symbol. You can have candles. I think like we spoke about in our Facebook post, we said you can either choose between two for those who cannot afford, between 2 to 16. So you should have at least two candles and at most 16. But in the case of recommendation, we often recommend 8 or 16, because 8 and 16 are the numbers that are associated with the goddess Ishtar, And among the other things, you need to have an offering plate or an offering tray. That is where you are going to give all your offerings. And we recommended that it should be porcelain, given that porcelain is associated with luxury, and luxury is one of the attributes. The love of luxury is one of the attributes of the goddess Ishtar. And among the many things you need to have, an offering cup, yes. And then, if possible, make available some bowls, some little porcelain bowls where you can offer things such as honey, given that the offering cup is will go to help in offering beer, liquids such as beer or wine to the goddess Ishtar. So that's it for the altar. And number two, a quiet place. I often stressed on the issue of having a quiet place to a place, specifically dedicated to devotion to the goddess Ishtar. If possible, for those who can afford it, you can have a quiet place, you can set a room aside to pray to the goddess Ishtar, just a particular room for yourself where you know that this is where you go to meet your goddess. And number three, an appropriate time. And in one of another Facebook post, I spoke about the time when you can pray to the goddess Ishtar, and I spoke about dawn, dusk. I spoke about the night and the noon time, and I gave some example at the dawn. That is dawn and dusk. These are the times where her star, Venus, is mostly visible in the sky, and it is an appropriate time to speak to the goddess Ishtar, to offer your personal intentions and requests to the goddess Ishtar. I spoke about noontime. I made reference to the exaltation of Inanna by Enheduanna, where she spoke about where she said, let it be repeated to you at noontime what that was repeated to you, what was said to you at the dead of the night. So I spoke about noontime being an appropriate time, given that aside the exaltation of Inanna, there are several other prayers. If you can look on my Facebook, on the Facebook page of the Universal Order of Ishtar, you will find a lot of prayers that mention about entreating Ishtar in the middle of the day. And I spoke about the nighttime, and based on the research, I said the nighttime is the period between 2 a.m. and 4:59 a.m. This is the third watch between the dead of midnight uh, and, and the emergence of the dawn. And I said that this is another time where you can entreat Ishtar for those who want a quieter time, and you can offer your personal intentions and prayers. And yes, number three, to perform your devotional rites, you need an appropriate time. Based on these four schedules, you can choose what's the best time for you to offer your intentions to the goddess Ishtar. So I gave a little rundown of what you can do for your daily prayer rites. Number one, you have to set your altar. You have to set your altar up and light your candles. Yeah, so you already know what to do. I think I don't have to go to how to set your altar up. I think a lot of people here who are already so far advanced in their devotion to Ishtar that they already know how to set their altar up. And number two, you have to start by reciting an old hymn to Ishtar. I know that a lot of people have their personal hymns to Ishtar, but I often recommend that one has to go with the already written hymns of Ishtar. And I spoke about the exaltation of Inanna by Enheduanna, and there is the raising of the hand to Ishtar. Sorry for the typo. I was really in a hurry when I wrote this. So there's the raising of the hand to Ishtar that you can use to pray to Ishtar. And I think there's a YouTuber by the name of Gavishri Amon who helped us with the melodic, who composed this hymn. And I think a lot of us can, I think if someone can help, he can share the link to the video in the chat so that some people can learn this. So I also recommend, that's why I say I recommend that you start by singing an old hymn to Ishtar. You recite an old hymn to Ishtar. And then number three, you sing any hymn or recite any other poem that you wrote to Ishtar. That is your personal. So you begin by what was written by the others, and then you follow up by the ones that you wrote. And then number four, you offer your personal intentions to Ishtar. So the things that you want. So what are the things that you want? What are your requests? What are those things that are burning up your heart? What are those things that you desire? So these are the ones that you can offer. You after singing the hymns, you can offer your personal intentions to Ishtar. And number five, you continue singing hymns to Ishtar. So singing hymns to Ishtar is not just something that you have to do at the beginning of your prayer rites. You also have to do it before you close the rites. You have to start with singing and then you have to end with singing, given that in ancient Mesopotamian religion, singing was a core part of the devotion to the goddess Ishtar. And then once you're done with that, you can close the rites, and then you can call it a day for your prayer session. So I'm going to get into quite a very sensitive topic, given that I've been getting a lot of requests to address this issue. I addressed it yesterday. I addressed it this morning. Yeah, but unfortunately, I put it in the presentation. So it's on the issue of sacred on the issue of sacred sex. There are some people who spoke to me about addressing the issue of sacred sex, whether it is okay to do to have sacred sex as part of the prayer rites to Ishtar. So that's what I'm about to delve into. So on the question of incorporated sacred sex in the rites, so the first thing we need to know is that the historical facts are ambiguous on this matter. That means there's no established truth about this issue of sacred sex. Why some literature may reference to sex with the priestess of Ishtar. I think in the case of the Epic of Gilgamesh, where they speak about Enkidu having sex for 6 days, I think so, with a priestess of the temple of Ishtar. And we even see the goddess Ishtar trying to seduce Gilgamesh. The truth hasn't been established completely on this matter. So which brings us to number 2, where we talk about scholars are still torn apart on the issue. Why some scholars say that sacred sex was a thing in the courts of Ishtar, some other scholars say it wasn't. So it was mostly a symbolic thing. And this issue brings us to our recommendation. Given that the scholars are still torn apart on the issue, and the truth hasn't been established on this issue of sacred sex, we often recommend that for those who want to incorporate it literally, consent is key. Consent is key. There should be consent, and if possible, it should just be with your partner. Don't try to it's a very tricky issue, and there's a very fine line that exists between what is legal and illegal. So consent is key when incorporating secret sex in the rites. But in other cases, we recommend a symbolic rite. So you just do something very symbolic. You don't have to be, for those who don't want to incorporate it in its literal meaning. I think a symbolic rite is better. But for those who want to incorporate it literally, consent is key. You need to bring consent. You need to have consent. So that's the end of the presentation. I don't know if anyone has any question regarding to what I said.
Well, thank you, Nana, the first. I guess, do you have any comment on how service might be seen in the offerings to Ishtar?
Can you be more explicit?
So like, doing charity work or volunteering or doing a litter pickup or something like that.
Yes, of course. Ishtar is a goddess that has been associated with that has been defined as a defender of the renegade, a defender of the dispossessed. So it's just but normal that if you say you are a devotee to the goddess Ishtar, you need to look after the poor, look after the destitute, you need to look after the disadvantaged. And yes, charity work, I highly recommend charity work. You need to be a charitable person. You cannot say you are a devotee of the goddess Ishtar and you don't have a heart for charity.
You have a question in the chat from Lori. I'm curious where you got the number on the candles.
I did research. I think I don't know how I'm going to do, but I will search. I will search. I will drop one of the links for references for those who want. Number 8 and 16. I think the 8 is for Her star is 8 pointed, right? Yeah. So number 8 is the numbers of is the number on her star. So yeah. So 8 and 16, depending on what you want. But it should be in pairs. The candles should be in pairs.
There was some interesting discussion at an earlier presentation about, I think it was the 4 winds that we were talking about, maybe 13 also being a possible number because it's the 4 directions, center, and then the like the 8 pointed star going into like the what's it called? The like the roads, or she was likening it to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, that they had streams. So it was like 8 different streams from the star. So that's like 8 plus 4 plus 1. So it's, I kind of feel like whatever number you can put a symbol on, it would work. But so like if you had the 8 streams with the 8 points, that would be 16.
Yes, yeah, dependent. But I usually recommend 8 and 16, or most of the time I recommend 8, given that that's the number of her symbol. I always recommend 8, given that I would not love to go into things, very complicated things. I would love to stick to, what the historians have discovered, and then add some elements of personal devotion to it.
If anyone has any other questions, now would be a good time.
I think that's a really good point about the historians, because I think, there's thousands of untranslated tablets that have been found, and there's probably thousands more. So it's sort of interesting how the religion changes as we discover more and more. So it's really great that we can be open to change and to the idea that we might know something now and it might be something different later, and it might, become something else. So, I love what you were talking about, Nana the First, but about the different offerings that can be given. And certainly those are all things that have been found in the tablets, but we may find more. We may find other things.
Ivan has his hand raised if you'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, I'll actually more like a comment if you don't mind. So in Temple of Inanna and Dumuzi, we about sex. In Temple of Inanna and Dumuzi, we often get people asking, like, can we do, like, raise charity with, like sexual beings or something. And when we looked into it, I'm not a lawyer, but my legal intuition is no, don't do that. Just saying, like, you can get in real trouble. I think it's not protected by a religion, by religious freedom, in the U.S., at least not in the state of California. So, I'll be very careful about having any money changing hands if there's sex involved. I just wanted to mention that because I just don't want anybody to get in trouble with the law or anything.
Yes, I agree. That's why I said, I would rather recommend in any other case that the ritual should be symbolic rather than literal, because there's a very fine line, states, it differs by states.
Yeah. I mean, I think as like, if it's among consenting adults and no money's changing hands, then it's all fine. But it's like, it's like as soon as money is involved, you get in really big legal trouble, and they're not gonna like they're going to laugh at you if you say it's freedom of religion. Like you're going to be like, no, you don't get to do that. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to interject. But I thought it was an excellent talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle or
thank you.
Lindsay, do you have anything you want to add? So, my experience of thank you so much, Nana. This was wonderful, and really appreciate that you're giving this platform for us to talk about this and think about it. It's really great. My experience of offerings with these gods and goddesses is that, I think, as you pointed out, like we want to give them the things that are really special to us, like the first fruit offerings, so that, like you don't want to give them rotten fruit, you want to give them the best fruit. I think that's true of anything that's really important to us as individuals, that when we make offerings, it's not about sacrifice, but it's about offering them the thing that is really special. And I think we talked earlier about how, I think somebody asked, if we have a plate of strawberries to give them, what do you do with it afterwards? And one comment was that you can eat them, and like you want to eat the things that are beautiful and tasty, and experience them the way the gods would. Do you have any thoughts about that, Nana?
Yeah. It was in ancient Mesopotamia. Usually, after the offerings were given to the gods, they usually distributed these things to the poor of the city, and the destitute. So yeah, it's fine. You have to. You can eat the offerings. The essence is that the gods, or the goddess Ishtar, she has already received the offerings. Yeah. So once you close the rites, you can go ahead and eat the offerings.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording here, but we can continue chatting afterwards.